What's going on, fellow A-plussers? It's your boy, Adam Perez. We're back, baby, once again with a brand new video for you guys today, as we are doing a little bit of an impromptu live episode today. As for you big Star Wars fans out there, we got some breaking news, news that I think we have been waiting on for weeks, to be honest with you, since the season finale of the Acolyte Season 1, whether or not the Acolyte was going to go ahead and be renewed for a second season. If you guys followed our weekly reviews for the Acolyte, we had a fantastic Jedi Council of 4 members here, all with certainly different tastes when it comes to Star Wars. And as we broke down each and every episode, it was really fun to be able to get some fair-minded, actual constructive criticism, certainly on the show, get a lot of certainly different viewpoints. And if anything, I thought we had a pretty balanced review, an official grade for the show overall. I think if you followed us on a weekly basis, hopefully you guys certainly appreciated our thought process and breaking down the Acolyte week to week. I think the end result of the Acolyte season 1, when it comes to official grading, it was kind of tipping the scales between a B minus and a B. I think the official grade was like a 82.5. So I think we graciously might have given it a bump to a very low B, if you will. So about 83%, 82.5%, not too far off, honestly, from the critic score for the Acolyte, which I think currently right now on Rotten Tomatoes is sitting at about a 78%, if you will. And so we were trying to wonder if this show was certainly going to come back or not. And today we officially have the news, ladies and gentlemen. So let's go ahead and drop this, guys, on you. This comes to us from the Deadline, deadline.com, letting us know that the Acolyte officially canceled. That's right. 1 season in, no season 2 for Disney Plus Star Wars series, unfortunately. One of the questions that was asked or that we asked the entire group when we first started talking about if we were going to get a second season, a lot of us were kind of up in the air, kind of very indifferent about it. The sense of, if they gave me a season 2, I probably would watch. Am I hashtagging renew the Acolyte? Am I begging for a second season? No, I certainly wasn't. I was very much up in the air in the sense of, whatever Lucasfilm decides, I would be perfectly okay with. And so the Acolyte officially canceled after 1 season. So let's go ahead and actually dive into maybe why that might be. We have another article for you guys here from Variety. I just want to see what some of the trades are talking about. This is exclusive. The story of the Acolyte will not continue, with Lucasfilm opting not to proceed with the second season of Star Wars Offshoot starring Amanda Stenberg, sources tell Deadline. Word of the decision comes more than a month after the 8-episode first season of the series from creator, director, executive producer, and showrunner Leslie Headland. I think if there's anything that made me really start to think, I don't think this second season is happening, I think after there was no announcement about it at D23. And if you guys actually go back and check out our Disney Entertainment Showcase panel live reaction, I think that's one of the things that I said to Stuart was like the fact that they didn't announce a renewal for season 2 at D23 was pretty eye-opening, if you ask me. It says the news is not entirely surprising. The Acolyte did okay with critics, with 78% on the Rotten Tomatoes, but divided Star Wars fans, which was reflective in its overall viewership. And I think there's truth to that, because despite the 4 of us on our Jedi Council, we all have different perspectives and different views as to what we enjoy about Star Wars. While I enjoyed the series for what it was, I thought it was a good show. I didn't think it was great. I didn't think it was spectacular. I thought it was a good show. There are actually even a couple of other people on our reviews that certainly said it was okay. It's an okay show, right? Like nothing they're writing home about. And I think that's pretty fair. pretty fair-minded perspective. So the fact that he says it did okay with critics certainly makes sense to me. Driven by interest into the venerable franchise, The Acolyte got off to a strong start when it launched June 4th with 2 episodes, generating 4.8 million views in its first day of the streamer, to rank as the biggest series premiere of Disney Plus this year. The tally rose to 11.1 million views after 5 days of streaming. So a lot of people really tuned in for that first week. Corroborating Disney's data, the series made its debut in Nielsen's top 10 original charts in its premiere week at number 7, with 488 million minutes viewed, climbing to number 6 to the following week. So for the first 2 to 3 weeks, not too bad. But the Acolyte could not sustain the momentum, dropping out of the top 10 in week 3 and staying off before returning at number 10 after the release of the finale. It seems as though more people probably came back to see how it was going to certainly round off, believed to be the lowest for a Star Wars series finale. Like fellow global streamers, Netflix and Prime Video, Disney Plus has a high viewership threshold for renewing high-end, big-budget series that cost well above $100 million per season to make. So while Leslie Headland has pitched her ideas, I think she too was kind of waiting to see if she would have more to talk about or a more story to certainly tell. Let's go from this article. And I'm going to bring up one more article here. This is currently coming to us from Variety. And feel free to let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section box below, or in the live chat. How do you personally feel about the idea of the Acolyte season 2 being canceled? This is from Variety.com. they're not parsing their words here. Not going lightly on Star Wars fans. The Acolyte is dead. Star Wars series won't return for a season 2. It says Lucasfilm has elected not to continue with Star Wars Disney series following its first season, which depicted the rise of the Sith roughly 100 years before the events of The Phantom Menace. The news comes at once as a shock, given how much season 1 finale ended on a cliffhanger and teased several plot lines for season 2, and not much a surprise given the wildly opposing reception from fans and the less than robust viewership that appeared to drop off after this series premiere in June. And it just says more to come. So look, there is certainly some truth to be told in a lot of this. I do think 2 things here. As much of a diehard Star Wars fan as I am, I'm definitely not one to blow smoke up your ass or gaslight you into thinking like the Acolyte was the greatest thing since sliced bread. This series definitely had its really enjoyable moments, some really great things certainly working out for it. 2 great, especially I think, performers in Manny Jacinto, who played Quimir, also the Stranger, along with Lee Jung-jae as Master Soul, who just did a killer job. Like, give this man an Emmy nominee at least, right, for what he was able to do as Master Soul in here. Fight choreography, incredible, on point to certainly say the least. It had some bright spots here and there, but I do think when it comes to performances, some of them were pretty wooden, some of them were kind of stale. The story was kind of all over the place, maybe not necessarily linking up or constructed as tight as it certainly could have been. I didn't necessarily have a problem with the murder mystery. And I think, like with all murder mysteries, there's always sort of like a little bit of a slow burn to kind of get to those reveals. But I also do think that this show maybe presented itself in a way that it didn't sell to us. I think there was supposed to be the way it was sold to us was the idea of like a dark side story, if you will, the beginnings of the rise of the dark side that we get to see in something like the Phantom Menace. And I think by the time we get to the finale, it set things up that way, but the entirety of the series certainly wasn't quite like that. And I wouldn't even necessarily say it was a murder mystery so much it was a mystery in the Star Wars universe. So interesting concept, but unfortunately the execution certainly wasn't there. Some of the storylines and the characters could have been a hell of a lot stronger than what they certainly were, and it just didn't necessarily work for everybody. I think there are going to be 3 sides of the fandom. Okay. One side absolutely loves it. The other side completely hates on it and bashes it for no reason. People that like literally don't pay attention to the context clues or what the show was all about, but they want to gaslight you and telling you how much of a failure that the show is. And there is a middle ground here, in which I do think is more or less the truth, right? There's always two sides of the story, and then there's the truth. And the truth of the Acolyte is decent show, not great. And I do think people, general audiences, came to realize that, in the sense of why they didn't follow up and watch the remainder of the episodes as much as they did the first 2 weeks, to certainly say the least. Could have outside noise of the hate, people calling it trash and lying to people's faces about all the, canon that it wind up breaking. Could that have outpoured into other things? Absolutely. I do think that maybe some of the those that were very loud and critical of the show, I do think that their voices certainly got heard, and I think it probably kept people from certainly watching the show. But I do think that there are just people, even if they weren't affected by that, I think walk away from it just thinking, it was okay. Nothing to write home about, or just didn't necessarily really care for it. I do want to bring up a comment that somebody posted on my Facebook page, and I think this is a great, I don't think they're part of Star Wars Twitter or anything like that, or in the big social media gathering of things. And they said the show had moments, but it wasn't good in my opinion. They were trying too much that didn't make sense. Again, that's just simply my opinion. And I think it's a fair opinion for somebody. And so, to each their own, man. But unfortunately, we will not be getting an Acolyte season 2. So yeah, that is in fact the news for today. Um, you know, I initially the idea of a season 2 happening or not happening, I was very much indifferent towards. But I do think that I think the more that I sit back, and now that I've been hit with the news of season 2 not happening, um, while I'm okay with it, it's not something I'm gonna certainly cry about. There is an aspect of me that I kind of wanted to maybe see a season 2, in the sense of how would they course correct? How would they improve upon? Because I think Manny Jacinto's Quimir continuing on would have been a really fascinating story. I think we got the introduction to Darth Plagueis. I really would have loved to have seen how his storyline maybe unfolded, in the sense of watching over Quimir as he's kind of going behind Plagueis's back and getting an acolyte for his own. What's that sort of power struggle certainly going to be like? Like, it almost feels as though season 2, the beginning of season 2 probably should have been the beginning of season 1, or like the last 2 episodes of the Acolyte maybe being the beginning 2 episodes of the Acolyte, and really kind of thrusting us into sort of that dark side story a little bit, instead of waiting to tackle it in a second season. So there are elements behind it that I really would have loved to have seen continued. More of the dark side stuff, probably better, even more fight choreography. I kind of wanted to know what was going to happen with Vernestra Rowe and her story. Now that we know the connection between her and Quimir as well, right? So I do think that there is um, promising storylines that unfortunately aren't going to be told in live action. There is a possibility, because we do have some Acolyte novels that are certainly get ready to drop. I am curious as to whether or not they're going to be the story may continue in other forms, whether that be comic books, video games, or even novels, kind of going down into the future. So sad news, if you ask me, for Star Wars fans, but it makes sense. I mean, if I honestly feel, I don't necessarily know if this is a case of Disney listening to all the negativity on Twitter and social media and not making a decision for themselves. This feels more in the sense of the numbers are what they are when it comes to the idea of viewership for the show. Great viewership the first 2 weeks, plummeted after that and just kind of pops up at number 10 come the finale. So people just unfortunately were not watching, despite the positivity on one side and the negativity on the other. A lot of people just unfortunately were not watching enough. I mean, look, you can even look at the numbers of something like Andor, which critically and audience wise, people that watch the show, a majority of them were certainly really big fans of the show. Did it have big viewership numbers? No, it didn't. But if I'm not mistaken, I think Andor stayed at least in the top 10 for the entirety of its run, right? Like people certainly paid attention to it. So I do think that there is a significant difference between it. So poor execution, maybe not necessarily the strongest characters, some of the writing at times a little bit all over the place, but some promising moments, to certainly say the least, for the Acolyte. So I feel a little bit bittersweet about saying farewell to the show, because there's a part of me that would have liked to have seen Disney kind of give people a big middle finger and give us a season 2 and try and improve certainly upon it. But look, I think we're in the streaming era now where you got to make a really good first impression to kind of get a second season of anything these days, and it just gets tougher, certainly, and tougher. So we'll see. I do think, look, I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. I do think if there is anything that kind of makes me a little sick to my stomach in regards to the outcome of all of this, is that I do think those grifters that, like, take advantage of the negative algorithm, and constantly hate on things in the Star Wars universe, I'm sure they're taking a victory lap right now, and I don't want them to have a victory lap, but they're certainly going to take the victory lap, and they'll gaslight you and they'll lie to you and they'll sit there and they'll tell you, see, we told you this whole entire time this show is trash. It's trash because it breaks canon. It's trash because of all the poor, like, they're gonna celebrate, and they're gonna make themselves to be prophets, and say they're always right, which is why Disney should listen to them a little bit more, right? Like, they're definitely gonna gaslight you and tell you that this show was trash and that's why it's not being picked up. And the reality of it is, the show is not trash. And the show is not great either. It's kind of somewhere in the middle, and a lot of people just unfortunately didn't jive with it. But to me, I do think that I don't want to say it sets a terrible precedent in the sense of justifying sort of what other people say, because look, if people aren't watching the show, people just aren't watching the show. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter who's certainly saying it, but there is a part of me that's just like, you're just giving them fodder. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're just giving them ammo to now use kind of going forward when it comes to being critical and unfair towards other television shows and whatnot. And so again, I don't believe that this is the case of Disney listening to those people and deciding let's not do it. I do think it had everything to do with numbers. But if there is anything advice wise, I would probably give to Lucasfilm, like I've ever written a television show in my life. Two things. While I appreciate the idea of getting a writer's room, um, try the writer's room again, but harder. And I mean that in the sense of really not pushing forward until you personally feel like your scripts are 100%, everybody's on board, let's go and let's kick some ass sort of mentality. And then two, continue to create what you want to create. I'm not a believer, and this probably is gonna hurt some people's feelings. I'm not always a believer in the sense of listening to fans, because I am very much under the impression, look, I'm 41 years old. I've been around on the earth long enough to see people's opinions change, to see people get what they want and still not be satisfied at the end of the day. And so, I hope that they don't listen to the overabundance of fans that are positive about everything. And I hope that they don't listen to fans that are 100% negative about anything. If you've got a great story to certainly tell, you tell the story that you personally want to tell, and you make sure that script is damn tight, that you get creators, cast members, crew members in front and behind the camera that are fully on board and know exactly what it is that they certainly want to create. Because when you start getting into the bag of let's appease this group of people, let's appease this group of people, you can't please everybody. And with one group that you try to please, you're going to get people that are going to hate what you create. And then those people that you might even try to please will then move the goalpost on you and say, oh, that's what I wanted, but it's not quite how I wanted it. You probably should have done this, right? Like we're just in a different age of people being so opinionated on things that I just think if you listen too much to what the fans want, you're never going to satisfy anybody. And so focus on the story that you certainly want to create, and go for it. Go for it 100%. When it comes to Star Wars television, look, we got an Andor season 2 that I'm highly looking forward to. I don't think we're going to see that until 2025. And then next up, we got Skeleton Crew, which seems to be hitting a lot of people positively. That Spielberg sort of Amblin sort of vibes, if you will. Skeleton Crew, after its trailer, I saw a lot of positivity on social media surrounding it. So we might have some really great Star Wars television series content certainly headed our way. But when it comes to the Acolyte season 2, just not happening, unfortunately. Marcelino, what's up? Just want to highlight some things people are saying. Aside from Clone Wars, this is the first time Star Wars gets canceled. But Clone Wars is canceled because Disney acquisition, but this is a traditional cancellation. Yeah, this is definitely traditional. Even though I think it's canceled, I think plot lines will return at one point in another show or even a comic, because if Star Wars is not a dying brand at one point, it'll most likely return. Yeah, I think if anything, the best bet is probably in a novelization. You can definitely build more upon the Darth Plagueis origin story if you certainly wanted to. Maybe Leslie Headland can, I don't want to say her be the author of the book, but clearly utilizing some of her stories, some of her story ideas to turn into novels, I think would be really great if you bring on somebody that knows how to write, and just add it as part of the High Republic content for sure. Marcelina says, what I really want is more High Republic content that isn't just books and comics. Yeah, and I hope that they do continue to navigate this particular era of Star Wars, because it is doing extremely well, at least when it comes to novels. Hell, I would almost, and I don't know why Star Wars doesn't do this with some of the great stories that they have, is adapt some of their novels. I would love to get the opportunity to see them adapt some of the High Republic novels that we've gotten so far in the first 2 and now 3 phases of the books themselves. Is it possible that the Acolyte was affected by the writer's strike? I don't know the timing of it all, Marcelino. I mean, maybe. I don't know though. I don't know the timing of it all, of when the writer's strike actually, like when it began, when Leslie Headland started writing things, what possibly could have changed due to the writer's strikes. I don't know if the writer's strike affected it, or if we can utilize that. I really don't know, unfortunately. But yeah, man. Look, it was just a mid show at the end of the day. It got mid viewership. Look, if you love the show, I'm happy for you. I'm not trying to yuck on your yum. I'm happy for you if you enjoyed the show. I thought it was a good show. I definitely saw its faults for sure. And if we were to get a second season, I definitely would have advocated for a much tighter script, better characters, and better execution of the show, in which we wind up getting. Some certainly just thought it was okay. And when it comes to viewership, that unfortunately just isn't enough these days when it comes to streaming services. So, I mean, we see shows canceled all the time after one season, unfortunately. I just don't think a lot of us expected it to be a Star Wars show, that they would have certainly given it maybe more room to breathe, but not in this particular case. So, look, we'll see what happens here, guys. If anything, we will be back for reviews for Star Wars Skeleton Crew. I'll keep you guys posted on any big Star Wars news that drops throughout the week also. So look, if you're a big Star Wars fan, if you like fair-minded perspectives, that's not going to gaslight you on how great or bad a show certainly is, but tell it to you like it is, feel free to go ahead and subscribe to this channel. We certainly would appreciate it. We got a ton of other content here for you on our channel as well, but that will do it certainly for me here. We'll definitely maybe talk about this a little bit more on our weekend Sunday episode of APlus Hero Report. But until then, do us a big favor as always, guys. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+. May the force be with you. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.